Hello, my friends. Welcome back to Mystery Monday, where we are diamond painting a mystery kit, and I tell you a real-life unsolved mystery story. This week, we're talking about the mystery of the Mary Celeste, which is one of the most famous unsolved mysteries of a real-life ghost ship. In the annals of maritime history, few tales are as enduring and perplexing as that of the Mary Celeste. A ship found adrift in the Atlantic Ocean in December of 1872, and its crew had mysteriously vanished without a trace. This is the story of the Mary Celeste, a vessel shrouded in mystery and speculation. Built in Nova Scotia in 1861, the Mary Celeste began its life as the Amazon. It was a cargo-carrying vessel, and it had changed hands several times until it found itself under the command of Captain Benjamin Briggs in 1872. Now, Captain Benjamin Briggs was a master mariner, and he had spent most of his life at sea and had captained 3 ships before the Mary Celeste. So he was not a novice, he was not a beginner. He had a lot of experience as a captain of many ships. In fact, Captain Briggs was one of 5 sons of Sea Captain Nathan Briggs, and all but one of the sons went to the sea, 2 of which became captains. And Captain Benjamin Briggs was a devout Christian, and he was a very religious man. And he married Sarah Elizabeth Cobb, and he actually had his honeymoon on board his first schooner, which was called the Forest King. And he had 2 children with Sarah. He had a son, Arthur, and a daughter, Sophia. Now, interestingly, at the time of this story, Captain Briggs was actually considering retiring from the sea and going into business with his brother Oliver. But in October of 1872, he took command of the Mary Celeste, and he had arranged for his wife and his infant daughter to go with him, and his school-aged son, Arthur, actually stayed at home in the care of his grandmother. So Arthur did not go with. On November 7th of 1872, the Mary Celeste set sail from a New York harbor bound for Genoa, Italy. And on board were Captain Briggs and his wife Sarah and their daughter Sophia. And then he had a crew of 7 seasoned sailors. So there were a total of 10 people aboard the Mary Celeste. And they set out sailing across the Atlantic Ocean. A month later, on December 4th, the De Gratia, which was a British brigantine, spotted the Mary Celeste drifting just aimlessly about 500 miles off the coast of Portugal. And what they found would baffle investigators for decades to come. The crew of the De Gratia approached the Mary Celeste with caution, and they expected to find a ship in distress. And instead, what they found was even scarier. They found her to be in seaworthy condition, with the cargo intact and enough provisions for 6 months still on board. But there was no signs of any crew. There were no human beings on the ship. Now, there was a few feet of water in the ship's bilge, which is the lowest part of the ship that rests below the waterline. However, everything else on the ship appeared to be in order. A few charts had been tossed about on one of the decks, but other than that, all of the crew's belongings were tucked neatly away. There were no leaks, there was nothing broken, there was no signs of a struggle, there was no signs of foul play. So this discovery was just really a baffling mystery. Now, during this time, it would not have been strange to find an abandoned ship or for a ship to go missing, but the fact that this ship was found with no damage, no signs of a struggle, no signs of violence, and no crew at all, it was just so strange. Now, some theories suggested that maybe the crew had abandoned ships due to fears of an explosion caused by the alcohol fumes from the alcohol cargo that they were carrying. Others speculated that this could have been piracy or mutiny, but there's no concrete evidence to support any of those claims. And it really made no sense that such an experienced captain, like Captain Briggs, would have abandoned a perfectly seaworthy ship. Again, there was nothing wrong with the ship except for a few feet of water in the bilge, but everything else seemed to be in working order. The ship's logbook provided very few clues. The ship and its crew spent 2 weeks fighting against raging storms and treacherous seas before reaching the Azores, which is an autonomous region of Portugal and an archipelago in the mid-Atlantic. Now, Captain Briggs chronicled the rough journey in his journal, but his log actually ended pretty abruptly on November 25th, 1872, in the morning. The night prior, his log recalled that the ship and its crew had continued to face rough seas and winds of more than 35 knots. But by the morning, they had come out the other side of the storm unscathed, and they had the island of Santa Maria in sight. It seemed that all was well at that point. Now, because of this very uncanny and strange way that Mary Celeste was found, it really kind of fed into those theories that this was a paranormal ghost ship that was somehow the victim of some sort of supernatural event that caused the crew to disappear. And the fate of the crew of the Mary Celeste remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries of the sea. And over the years, numerous theories have been proposed, but none of them have been definitively proven, and none of them explain exactly what happened on that fateful voyage. One such theory was that Captain Briggs had conspired with another captain, Captain David Morehouse, to commit insurance fraud. Now, a lot of people dismiss this theory because there are a lot of holes in it, but one interesting thing that happened was Captain Morehouse had actually dined with Captain Briggs in New York just before setting sail, and they were considered to be friends. Captain Morehouse just happened to be the captain of the De Gratia, which was the ship that found the Mary Celeste drifting aimlessly without a crew. So Captain Morehouse and his crew were the ones that approached the ship and discovered that the crew was missing, and they towed the merchant ship with them to Gibraltar, where the authorities conducted their investigation. Per the laws of the sea, the abandoned ship now belonged to Morehouse because he found it and he towed it. And he stood to profit from the sale of the ship. It was speculated that this was a setup and that Briggs and Morehouse were going to split the profits from the sale of the ship. However, there were holes in this theory, as Briggs actually held property shares in the ship, and he would have gained nothing from this whole scheme. It was also said, again, that he was a devoutly religious man, and unlikely to have participated in such a crime, and also the fact that his wife and child were there. It's unlikely that he would have committed a crime and gotten rid of the crew and his family. Now, eventually, the crew of the De Gratia did receive payment for the ship, but it was only 1/6 of the total value of the Mary Celeste, suggesting that the authorities were not totally convinced of their innocence in this whole matter. The theory of mutiny has been debunked due to the fact that there were no signs of violence on the ship, and the theory of piracy was also debunked due to the fact that no valuables were missing. Again, all of the cargo and all of the crew belongings were completely intact. Nothing was missing. Now, many thought that the vapors from the alcohol cargo could have blown the hatch cover off, and fearing fire, the crew abandoned ship. There was one lifeboat that was missing, and the investigators did confirm that only one lifeboat was missing. And the curious thing is that the lead investigator indicated that the boat's rope was cut and not untied, indicating that the escape from the Mary Celeste was performed very quickly. And so that does feed into the theories that something had scared the crew and they tried to abandon the ship very quickly. And so it does feed into this theory that there could have been fumes or vapors coming off the alcohol, and the crew was scared of an explosion or a fire. However, the hatch was found to be secure and still fastened tightly when the ship was investigated, and there really was no evidence of any fumes or fires or explosions or anything of that nature. And of course, when the most rational explanations don't pan out, people tend to look at some not so rational explanations. And of course, tales of sea monsters became associated with the missing crews, and tales of this being a ghost ship, and there were stories of water spouts and giant squids and krakens, because there was no other way to explain this missing crew. And eventually, later on, stories of alien abductions came about. And this also fed into the narrative that it was some sort of paranormal or extraterrestrial reason that this ship had just completely disappeared. In more modern times, researchers have put together some data to try to explain what possibly could have happened to the crew of the Mary Celeste. Per Smithsonian Magazine, researchers reconstructed the drift of the ship and deduced that Briggs' chronometer, which would have been used to determine their position at sea, had actually been faulty. And this meant that the Mary Celeste was off course about 120 miles, and they were way too far west of where they should have been. And they were expecting to hit land 3 days sooner than they actually did. However, that alone does not explain why a seasoned captain would abandon ship. Just because you're off course, that doesn't mean you load up a lifeboat with your family and your whole crew and abandon a seaworthy ship. Now, it was discovered, however, that the ship had previously carried a load of coal, and the ship was in New York and had undergone a total refit. And this voyage that Captain Briggs was in charge of was its first voyage since that refit. And they had found that the debris from this previous load and this refitting had potentially clogged the ship's pumps. and it was preventing the water in the lower decks from backing out. So in more modern times, the researchers have theorized that it is possible that upon discovering that they were off course with a faulty instrument and they were taking on water that could not back out, that they needed to abandon ship. So upon this discovery, they may have entered the lifeboat and tried to head to the nearest piece of land, and they potentially could have tipped over, causing all 10 of them to drown. Now, of course, we still just don't know what happened to the crew of this ship, and the whole thing is just shrouded in mystery. So the Mary Celeste, a ghost ship that continues to haunt the imagination, reminding us of the enduring mysteries that lie beneath the surface of the ocean. All right, my friends, we have finished our section for this week, and we've got a big chunk of our middle gnome done. Let's zoom out a little bit if we can. Oh. So far, so good. We only have 6 squares to go. So overall, the mystery painting is looking pretty good. We have a lot of space up here to look at, and one whole gnome here that needs to be uncovered, and just a little bit of this gnome down here. So overall, it's looking pretty good. Very, very sparkly. So we'll keep working on them, and let me know what you thought about today's mystery story. Let me know what you think about the mystery kit, and we'll keep plugging away on it. I hope you enjoyed this week's Mystery Monday. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.